You ready to go live? Cool, man. All right, we are live. Golden Arrogance says first. According to this, you're either first or fifth. There's 5 of us in here, so Ndewonu to everybody that's here. My son wants to be a part of the stream for this one, or at least for now. I'm sure he'll get bored soon enough.
Give me some.
I'll turn the volume down. Oh.
Yeah.
I have my new volume.
Let's do.
All right.
This is my phone, you.
Guy team back at it. Ndewonu. Welcome. So we are here to celebrate 5,000 subscribers. I am still sick a little bit, hence no shave, but whatever. And but I'm feeling at least good enough to record now. So we are back to work on the next video, which is the 4 world ages. Uga explain. So thank you, Ikenga Nation. Thank you very much. So real quick, let us go ahead and begin. Nemba yekelere mono oje abiala okike kere ụwa alawala ekelere mono oje abiala ojike wu oji ndụ ojike wu oji udo n'ọkọ ka dị n'eke n'ọkọ ka dị n'afọ n'ọkọ ka dị na nkwọ I say orie na orie n'ọkọ ka dị n'afọ n'ọkọ ka dị na nkwọ ise let me say ise.
Stay there.
You want to stay there?
Yeah.
No, you can't stay there. You have to stay here. Oh. Cool. All right. Somebody says Namdi is back. Where do you get contents from? When you say I see Biafra colors. Huren like Adi. When you say content, what do you mean? Like my research? I keep all my research documents in a folder that's available to all the patrons at patreon.com/themedicineshell. So if you're interested in becoming a patron and getting access to that folder, it is patreon.com/themedicineshell. Let me see if I'm going to actually see if I can pin that to the top so I don't have to say it over and over. Patreon. Let me stay still. We are celebrating 5,000 subs. This is not going to be an extra deep stream, mainly because I can barely think. That we are coming down, or we are all recovering from what was COVID. My wife went and got a test; she got sick as well. So we're waiting for the results, but I'm pretty sure I know what it is. Let me take it easy, yo. I'm just trying to type, and if you guys don't know, while I'm recording, this is what I deal with. So if you hear a medicine shell video with no Namdi in the background, just know how much work it took to get it to be that way. But I think the last one, I just said, whatever, let him have it. And so he jumped in towards the end. Namdi's cute. Homegirl healer, thank you. No. All right. That is the Patreon. And I'm going to pin it to the top. Message pinned. Okay. I think that should do it. All right. So how are we doing this today? So I've never done this before in this format or fashion, but more or less, I'm just going to be here hanging out. We're celebrating 5,000 subscribers. And if you guys have any questions, this is an Ask Me Anything stream. So it can definitely be about the topics that we discuss on the channel and in the Patreon, or anything else that comes to mind. If anybody's got random comments or stories, I'm here for it. If anything comes to my mind, I'll be sharing it as well. No scripts, just going off the head and seeing what you guys want to hear about or know about or whatever. There were questions from last time too that I didn't get a chance to answer. So if some of you guys remember your questions, that would be great too. We are at 13 people, so we're growing out here. Shots. Yeah. I wish I could drink. I should actually get a shot of water. Let me get some water. Now, do you hold down the fort? No, I'm without water. All right.
Where's
Hold on. So I said, just kidding. No, not just kidding. I don't have any alcohol right now. I've been too sick to go get anything recreational. So we're doing shots of water. Have you considered working with From Nothing or Home Team History? I need to check out From Nothing. I've probably seen their channel, but the name's not connecting. I'm a fan of Home Team History. I was watching Home Team History before I even started my channel. So yeah, but I know for sure Home Team History is definitely a bigger channel than mine. So I always feel like whenever it's a bigger channel, they have to reach out. Like, I don't want to just like, I don't know. I don't want to say the wrong thing and then it ends up just like, it doesn't happen, because most definitely if I were to collaborate with Home Team History, they would be the one doing me the favor. So yeah, if you guys want to see me collaborate with Home Team History or From Nothing, reach out to them and say, hey, we want to see you do a collaboration with the Medicine Shell and so forth, and it'll kind of break the ice, or what's the term? It'll pave the way for making that possible if you guys request it. So you've requested it to me. AP, I appreciate that. Reach out to them as well, and then hopefully we can make it happen. I think more of us in this space that we're in, where we're teaching and discussing African history and thinking critically about certain concepts within our ancestral culture. If more of us can collaborate, I think a lot of really cool things can happen. I've seen similar collaborations in other spaces, and what we do is fairly new as far as being on YouTube and doing it the way that we're doing it. So I understand that there's not much precedent for collaboration. But yeah, I'm all for it. If you guys can reach out to them and let From Nothing and Home Team History, if you guys can reach out to them and let them know, then yeah. And I'm trying to remember From Nothing. I feel that there's a visual I have in my mind of how they usually display things, but I'm worried that I'm connecting it to the wrong name. From Nothing to Here is definitely worth considering. Yeah, awesome. He worked with From Nothing. He may work with you. Okay, yeah, I'll reach out to him. Home Team would be doing us all a favor. Yeah, definitely. It's a hell of a channel. Is there a way for someone with Igbo family to inquire about being initiated? I'm glad you asked that. There are no initiations in Odinani. Low key, there are no initiations in Ifa either, but I think we'll go ahead and discuss that now. So I'm glad you brought that up. So there's nothing for you to be initiated into. Now, if you are looking to get a chieftaincy title or be initiated into a specific society within Igbo culture, such as Ekpe, Nze, Ozo, Okonko, there's a whole bunch of them that you can get initiated into. Owu in my area. There are different masquerade societies you can get initiated into, but to be initiated into Odinani, it doesn't exist. There's no such a thing. There's also none in Ifa as well. I know that that's a big thing kind of in that community, but a lot of the practitioners, especially the home-based practitioners, will tell you there's no such a thing as being initiated. Unless you want to become a Baba, you can also be initiated into being a Dibia. So as far as initiations, there are none. If anybody's selling you an initiation, don't take it. They're just trying to get money. There was another part of that question that I didn't answer. Is chi intuition more valuable than visiting a Dibia? Yeah, well, the saying is that Chika Dibia, right? So Chika Dibia. Anything a Dibia is going to find out for you, they're going to ask your chi. Anything that an Abara is going to find out for you, that Abara is going to ask your chi first, right? All of the answers you are seeking are within and from your chi. So you already have these answers, right? A lot of times we need assistance. So if you need additional assistance from somebody else, absolutely going to a Dibia, doing Afa, all these different things would help. But ultimately, you can also dig within and get the answer yourself too. And that comes with a lot of knowing yourself, accepting yourself, and a lot of patience and time. A lot of people don't have the time, so sometimes they'll go to a Dibia to get the answer quicker or get the result quicker, which in itself there's a big problem that it causes, and I think I'll discuss that in another live. the further I go into my research and the further I go into my own learning, the more I see the quest for shortcuts being a huge detriment in everything that I'm discussing. A huge detriment. So oftentimes a DBA can be a shortcut, but you already have the answer within you. All a DBA can.
Yes, I'm going to go to mommy.
You're gonna go to mommy? Okay. All right. Now this.
Come on.
No, I have to finish. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Go ahead. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Cool. All right. Go to mommy. So yeah, you already have the answers within you. Your chi is far more valuable. Your intuition are far more valuable than any DBA can dream to be. Hey, Derek, I got a question for you. The other day, I was thinking about the 4 essences and got thinking, hey, if y'all don't know Ross already, Ross always comes with these like very difficult questions. So, but I've already let him know I appreciate them. So where we at? 4 essences I got thinking. Since Agon knows all, is Onyo wa Agon the container for our whole spirit? I would not say Agon is the container of your whole spirit. Agon is a part of, spirit. If I envision, when I translate spirit, I envision spirit or soul as a combination, or let me put it this way. I envision spirit as more, right? Spirit as more. More is your spirit. That's what it is. And then soul, maybe I'm saying it wrong, encompasses all of those different things, chieke, ago, and more, right? So no one holds the rest of them, or no one is the vessel or container or carrier of all of them. They are all you. You're the vessel, really. You are the combination of all those things, but they all stand on their own and have their own specific functions and things like that. So I hope that kind of answers your question. If it doesn't, maybe you can elaborate further down. From nothing to definitely consider watching. Yup. Is there a way someone you can you guys send me the collaboration that Home Team History and From Nothing did? I also want to see what the collaborations look like, since I haven't collaborated with any channels yet. But it's something I'm really that's something I'm really looking forward to if it happens, and I'd be very grateful for. So yeah, Home Team History is awesome. Do you make fufu for your ancestral offerings? I personally don't, but of course, go for it if that's what they ate, definitely. But I personally don't. I don't use food. The only food I use or anything close to food is aji. So when I do, I go, this is my routine, right? So in the morning, I'll go outside, I'll face east first. There's something that I read that was very interesting about the effect of seeing sunlight early in the morning. So sometimes I'll keep my eyes squinted till I get outside. But it enhances dopamine production throughout the day if you see sunlight early. So I'll face east, I'll do, my eke or yafo. I'll give my blessings, and then I'll speak on the things that I'm grateful for and what I want to see in the day. From there, the first of these seeds here, my oseology, I'll cast it into nature. I have in my altar. My altar has a face, which represents me, but it's not it's like an Easter Island face. And then there's a cup, and then in the cup, is where I do my feeding. So I'll give the altar some. I'll throw some into nature, one over my shoulder, and then I'll take one before. I'll do all those before eating. And so that's my routine. And from there, I'll start watering my plants and going about my day and that type of thing. But that's my routine. That's how I do my own. I don't actually use food. Not that there's anything against that or wrong with that. When something really good happens, when I get really good news or I'm really happy, I'll take like sake. I don't think I have any here. Yeah, I'm all out. I'll take sake, and sake is Japanese rice wine, if anybody doesn't know. And I'll use it to do libations. So I think I just my altar finished my last few drops of my last bottle, and I've barely been out of the house since I've been sick. Let's see here. So yes, you go ahead and make fufu for your ancestors. The people who are more advanced in their understanding, let me say in their practices than I am, regularly use food. So I'm a patron. Okay, I'm a patron of home team. Cool. I'm going to send him a message. Oh wow, yeah, that'd be cool. Cool. Homegirl healer. I would love that. That would be great. Like I said, I'm a fan of the channel, so yeah. Somebody retracted a message. It's all good. Urenna, I see you. What? No initiation in Ifa? No, there are no initiations in Ifa. So to be initiated in Ifa, okay, so let me put it this way. There are initiations, but they're not mandatory. So people always ask me how they can get initiated, almost like it's like the first step, right? And so the next question is initiated into what? And then from there, it gets hazy. To get initiated into Yoruba spirituality or Igbo spirituality, there's no such a thing, right? There's no such a thing. These are observational cosmologies. These are our ancestors, the language our ancestors use to explain the universe on the external and within, right? This is our understanding of our humanity and our universe, right? So you don't get initiated into knowledge. You don't get initiated into wisdom. But there are things within it that you can be initiated into. So, for example, if you join the following of a specific Orisha, I believe, or let me just speak on the Igbo one. If you're joining the following of a specific Arishi, then fine, you can get initiated into that. But 90% of people who engage in or interface in this understanding are not initiated into any of those things, unless we want to count like a chieftaincy title or really just a title. Or some people will be in Masquerade societies, but it's not many. So oftentimes, I don't want anybody to think that the first thing they need to do is get initiated in something, because there's no such a thing. You can't get initiated. Odinani is a word that if you said it to a 70-year-old man, he wouldn't know 100% what you're talking about, unless he's like an academic. Now, it doesn't mean that it didn't exist in his time, right? But there wasn't a word for it. Odinani is just being Igbo, right? Just like Judaism is just being Jewish. Shinto is just being Japanese. What we call Ifa is just being Yoruba. It's not, we give it these names because once it came in contact with Christianity and once it came in contact with, let me say specifically colonialism, we took everything that our ancestors said, did, knew, lived, and we gave it a name. We put it in a bottle because the world got bigger. That situation caused the world to get bigger, so then now you can name it. But again, if I said, how do I get initiated into, if somehow we encapsulate everything Americans know scientifically, socially, morally into, and we give it a name, and somebody goes, we'll call it, I don't know, Jumanji. And somebody goes, how do I get initiated into Jumanji? You as an American, if you're American asking, you would know that you don't need to get initiated into being American. Yeah, sure, get your citizenship, whatever. But if you want to know all the stuff that Americans know, you don't need to be initiated into it. Now, you can get initiated into the CIA and the Freemasons and the Boy Scouts and all these things within it. But the entire thing itself, there's no initiation. So no, there's no initiations in Ifa. I also think a lot of that comes from the diaspora. I can't talk, from the diaspora. And this is a theory. This is my own theory. I think, especially when it comes to Ifa, I think a lot of these initiations come from the fact that a lot of these African practices were held secret, right? So you didn't want it known that you were doing this because there were consequences given the situation with slavery and so forth. And especially since these practices and these ideas were where a lot of the capacity to rebel was coming from. A lot of where the organizing for rebellion was coming from. A lot of where the poisoning of XYZ so that the rebellion can launch was coming from. So a lot of these things got pushed underground. You understand? And I think that's where the initiation factor became very important in the diaspora. But back home, when you go home, you'll find that the initiation thing is not common. It's become common because people from the richest country in the world keep flooding in trying to get initiated, and people from a country that's slightly hungrier than the richest country in the world will go ahead and go along with it. But it's not super mandatory. There are things within Odinani you can be initiated to, but initiation into Odinani, there's no such a thing. And I'm going to make that very clear because as this channel becomes more popular, I think a lot of people are being introduced to these concepts from this channel. There are other teachers out there too, wherever. But then what's going to happen is there's going to be like a flood of BS artists who are going to try to take advantage of the situation. So I want to get ahead of them and say, hey, and the initiation thing is not real, and so forth. Somebody asked, how am I? I'm doing better than I was the other day. I was very sick for a few days. I did a live while I was sick, and I came alive. I was reinvigorated. I didn't feel sick, and then the day after, I've been feeling good. So that thing was that interaction we had on the last live. That's what we call Ogun. You guys helped me heal, so I appreciate that. Are you familiar with Insibidi and Haitian Vevez? I think it's pronounced Vevez. I could be wrong. I'm Haitian, but often I look like Igbo. Yeah. I had a lot of Haitians will say that they look Igbo, or somebody told them they looked Igbo. I had a bus driver when I first moved to Houston. I didn't know that in Houston, using public transport is socially frowned on. So I came to Houston, I was using it up and down, and some of them bus drivers can get outright rude, and then when you tell people, they'll just say, why were you on the bus? And so I remember I got here and I was waiting out, it was cold, and he was just looking at me. People treat people very bad when they take public transportation here. It's ridiculous. Something I noticed, but it was cold and he was just looking at me, and I'm just, waiting for the bus to open. He opens, he goes, I don't open till whatever time. And I said, that's fine, man. And I walked in, and he's like, man, don't give me that attitude, you something Haitian. And I was like, what? So he's a black guy. I go, what? And he's like, you heard me. And I'm like, whatever. And I just didn't want any issues. I wanted to sit down. If I get into an argument with this guy, I'm going to miss work. So whatever he's going through, I've worked in a job where I'm facing the public. So I'm sure has his reasons for being the way he is. I don't blame him completely. So I sat down, and then he told me that we Haitian Trinidadians think we run everything. So I look very, very, very Igbo. So he was the first person, once I moved to a big city, the first person to call me a Haitian. I've been called Haitian 3 more times since then. So my brother, I understand that if somebody would say you look Igbo, we probably look like brothers. So anyways, yeah, back to your question. So you had asked if Insibidi, when I was doing my research on Insibidi, it said that Insibidi is a part of the Vives and then the La Firma of Cuba, that it's infused in there. So yeah, yes, Insibidi is a part of the Haitian Vives. I'm probably saying it wrong. I've never heard the word said before. It is a part of it, according to my research. I couldn't tell you where and how it plays a factor. I know that the way the script is done in Haiti is also how a lot of the scripting when ritual is done back home is done. And it's also looks like uli, the uli that they used to draw on people. So it's all there. It's all in there. Let's see here. He understood Gwaha. Yeah, Namdi Nasun Igbo. Namdi speaks Igbo, or he hears Igbo. So this year, what I did with my son was, though as you guys can see from the stream, I'm not the best with it. I said that I'm only going to speak Igbo to him, especially in the evening. Hey, Uluma, what's up? Yeah, go ahead. There's no camera. So I said that I would only speak Igbo to him, especially in the evening. Now, my instinct language, I think I said this in the last stream, or maybe in the group chat. So apologies if I'm repeating the story. But my first instinct is if something happens and knee-jerk reaction, I'll speak English. And so I haven't been the best about that, but I've been at it for a year now, and he can hear anything I say now. It sank in pretty well. I have a particular way of teaching the language that I think is kind of unique, but I focus mainly on verbs. So I'm teaching him all of the verbs first. I've made games for him. I made a book, Baby Gabwegu. If you guys are interested, I'll post a link to it here. But what I'll do is I'll focus on verbs, because Igbo is a verb-based language. I don't do a lot of the teachers will start with the alphabet and all this stuff. And my grandmother, I don't know if my grandmother knows the Igbo alphabet, and that's her only language, And so I just focus on the verbs, and he picked them up pretty quickly. Once you learn the verbs, yeah. So once you learn the verbs, the language kind of trickles out, or it's way easier to learn, starting verb first. So I have a big announcement as far as that goes. Maybe I'll say it towards the end of the stream, but yeah, Namdi can understand Igbo, so cool that you caught that. I need to reword that. I should have said I go interface with more. Yes, all the components of you interface with each other, or does it have a record of all of our lifetimes? Agon has a record of your Agon is the record of your lifetimes. So anything pertaining to past life or past life experiences is in the realm of Agon. So yes, Agon does do that, but then the different parts of you interface and interact and things like that. If you understand a lot of different rituals, the thing they call Agon, right? One of the elements of Agon is manipulating those different parts to do different things. The same way a doctor would manipulate the functions of your own body for healing and so on and so forth. An Ezenwai or a Dibia would be able to manipulate those four parts based on XYZ. A lot of times when you see ritual, that's what you're seeing is more the manipulation of more, lack of better term, I'll say manipulation of more altars are the same thing. So I'll be doing a video on Algon, and that's Algon is something that you're able to do once you understand things at a higher level. You can then start now moving around the pieces like a mechanic and so forth and make really cool things happen. So where are we at? How do you take the first step in? First step to Odinani. Not sure if I'm clearly articulating my question. No, homegirl here, that is a good question. So the first step anybody should take is learning the names of their ancestors. Learn the names and the stories of your ancestors. That is the absolute first step. After learning their names, you can then decide how you want to interface with that concept, whether it be establishing an altar or, just honoring them somehow, some way, because the next step would then be to honor them by name. So the first step is to learn the names of your ancestors. Odinani is not structured like a religion because it's not a religion. In the sense that there's an institution and there are like steps and so forth. It is a perspective on life. It is a perspective on life. One for our ancestors, it was the perspective on life, but it's one of many now. So there's no set way to do it. You do it based on what works for you. I compare it more to a toolkit than an instruction book, right? So if you are building a house, there are certain tools you're going to need to do that. The knowledge that hopefully you're getting from my channel and other sources and so forth will provide you with the different tools for you to be able to do what you're doing better, or to approach the thing you're doing in a more holistic and more rewarding way. And that's really what it is. It's a toolkit. It is a body of knowledge for the enhancement of living and the enhancement of doing. And then this is something I think I said in one of my videos too, the doing comes first. And this was the case for our ancestors and everything else. Just about anything you'll encounter African wise, the doing comes first, right? So you do first, you don't cut away from life and go do Odinani, then come back into life. Similar to how like maybe you cut away from life and you go to church and this is God's day and so forth, you come back. It's all infused in there. So the different things you're doing and just kind of learning the principles behind what you're doing and enhancing it that way. There's an Odinani way of eating. There's an Odinani way of welcoming guests. There's all these different things. So you can learn these things and add them to what you do to enhance the experience and find alignment in what you're doing, as it is a more holistic means of incorporating all the facets of self and universe into what you're doing. But from there, the next after the ancestors, the question is, what is it that you're trying to do, right? Then once you find out what you're trying to do, then you can now apply the tools towards doing what you need to do. So that's kind of the way I put it. I hope that answer works. Oh, I retracted my message. I said something that I didn't like. Okay. I didn't like some of HCH contents I saw on Igbo. I was offended. I was trying to think of a nice way to say this. I don't think I try to stay away from anything talking about anything that I'm particularly passionate about. Um, because I don't want to be in the comments talking about, no, you're wrong, So I haven't watched the Igbo episode. I know some of the our brothers and sisters were wilding in the comments, making very proud and bold state claims. I saw a couple of like arguments in the comments, and I kind of left it alone. But I didn't. I didn't watch that one. Um, but I like his videos on the Sahel, so like the Mali Empire, things like that. Those are really interesting. And then I've watched others here and there, and like I think now he's doing more focusing on like different, like taking a single idea and then focusing in on it, and I think that's pretty cool too. I've seen a few of those too, but I haven't seen the Igbo one. So yeah. Thank you for. At the same time, too, if he said anything wrong, I don't blame him. I think we as Igbo people were really, really late in getting our information out there, just because we didn't prioritize it. So there's a lot of stuff where it's like a very credible source, and the person did all the research in the world, but like the materials necessary to do research are not of quality, or the materials to research with are not of quality, and especially if you don't have like a lived experience with it, it's going to be hard to decipher what's what. Like if this is person just this is fake or is this real, yada 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 kind of thing. So yeah. Thanks for explaining the initiation part. I never felt the call to initiate into anything, but people who I know who have initiated always try to make me feel I'm wrong for doing so. Yeah, no, there's no. Again, I think it might have something to do with the history of like Africans in the diaspora and having to hide their practices and identity and so forth. But as far as in Africa itself, there are no initiations, and I don't even see how that would. I don't even see the logic of it. It doesn't really make sense. Again, the term Ifa, like we'll take the term Ifa. Ifa is divination. Is the divination that we do. We call it Afa, right? The entire thing is called Ifa just like as a colloquially, like as slang. It's not the actual name. The entire thing itself is just being Yoruba. It's not. There's no word for it. We call Odinani, but it's just being Igbo. You understand? So I was never initiated into being Igbo. My son wasn't initiated, so my wife wasn't initiated, but we are, and then and my father, grandfather, so on and so forth. Now, my father did initiate me into the O society, right? Which is the dominant or one of the main masquerade society in my community. My grandfather did he did like a blessing in type of thing, like an initiation into the Nze society, which is the dominant title society in my area. So I'm initiated into both of those things. Now I'm not an Nze, it's a title I'll be aspiring towards. I have a video called Nze Explained if you want to know what that's all about. But it's a title where you have vowed to become a living ancestor, and so in taking this vow, there's a certain way you're going to live your life. There are very strict rules as far that you're going to follow about eating, how you're going to interact with people, how you're going to dress, all these different things. Just like living kosher, for lack of better terms. And no, not literally kosher before somebody starts that thing again, but just a specific way of life. So my grandfather blessed me, not blessed or like initiated me into that. But I'm not. There are levels, so I'm the baby one. Back in the day, the Nzes used to have the chin marks on their face. So with the title that I have, I can get those marks, but I'm not trying to do all that right now. I'm not trying to do all that right now. But yeah, as far as initiation goes, just like if let's say you're American, you don't need to be initiated to be an American, right? But there are things in American culture that you can be initiated into if you want to join the Freemasons, which is comparable to Nze. And also on the title societies. If you want to join a book club, there are different things in the culture, but to be okay, I need to get initiated into being North American. That doesn't make any sense, that kind of thing. So, Mommy. Man, you look like everyone in the Caribbean. Especially Trinidad, where I'm from. Yeah, that's the one. Like I said, that bus driver called me a Haitian Trinidadian and said that the Haitian Trinidadians think we run everything. He's having a bad morning clearly and wanted to make me know it. So, so yeah, no, it's not the first time I've heard I look like I'm from Trinidad. But yeah, I believe most Trinidadians are Igbo anyway. It makes sense. I look very, very Igbo. So yeah, I know an Ifa Baba here in Trinidad who are known for doing a good job at preserving language. For Igbo people, it's been more of a challenge. So I will be just speaking my language to my child at home. And I think that's about the best I can do. It's also for me too. You wearing your hat? That's cool.
Yes. Can you go get chairs?
You want to get chairs?
Can you go get
Oh, go get mine. I don't know where my hat is. You can go look for it. If you find it, like I'll wear it. Okay. I was trying to wear it before this too. So yeah, my son has a hat, and anytime he wears his hat, I have to wear my hat. Anytime I wear my hat, he has to wear his hat. So we're tight like that. But yeah. So yeah, he just speaks his language. That's amazing. Yeah. So I'll be doing that with my son as well. But again, my knee jerk reaction is to speak English. English now. So yeah. The term Christians was coined of Christianity. They talk about it in the Acts of Apostles. Any name for Odinani practitioners would come organically. Yeah. Okay. A friend tells me that Igbos are mentioned in a national song where they call out Igbo as one of the nations that make up their people. Ekundayo, is that Trinidad or is that Trinidad or Haiti or which country is that? Yeah, I think somebody asked as well. So, okay, do you think Odinani as a life approach informed Igbo landing in the U.S. and the refusal to endure slavery by going into the sea? Absolutely, yes, absolutely, absolutely. The thing that really drew me to Odinani and just African belief systems in general is that what you find is the practitioners seem to surpass the feat. Yes, boy. What's up? JB Momina. JB Momina. Okay, so what I found, or what you find, is that the practitioners seem to surpass the fear of death more so than anything or any other group of people I have witnessed. And so the idea of death as a deterrent or death as a means of persuasion or coercion against the person if they are firm in their knowledge, it's just not a thing, or it's not. The human will is stronger than becomes stronger than death on a very consistent basis. When things pop off back home, when there's something that happens back home, 9 out of 10 of the people that'll fight back will be the traditionalists. I think even with everything going on with Biafra and stuff back home, it's the traditionalists that have been defending everybody. It's everybody else is nowhere to be seen, and it's been the traditionalists that have been defending everybody. And so I hope it's known, but nobody wants to say it out loud. I think, I don't know. But they will get the respect and the acknowledgement for that they deserve. But Igbo landing, all these different cases, when you find a group of people who are deep in their knowledge and who are rooted, who are deeply rooted in their ancestral way of life, the fear of death is not a factor for them. It's and on a very consistent basis, so. Absolutely believe it influenced Igbo landing. I'll be doing a video on Igbo landing too, so thanks for bringing that up. How people can be ruthless in comment sections. Yeah, we have no social skills. Hold up. In terms of ancestors, how far back do we need to go? Those of us whose ancestors were enslaved may not know our ancestors past a certain point. Yes, so you go back as far back as you go as far back as you can. Now, and I do understand about the wall that a lot of Africans in America will encounter when they're searching their history. There is a wall where you're not going to be able to get names and so forth after a certain time or a certain period or point. But that's about as far back as just about anybody who is not royalty can go anyways, you know. After a certain amount of generations, the amount of people it takes to make you becomes damn near uncountable. I think it's after like 4 or 5 generations. You can't count them all. So what we do back home is we'll trace just through the father's line. That's the main one that you're going to trace, is through your father's line. But not everybody has that luxury, so they can do both, or they can just go back as far in any direction that they can. But what is important, if you can go as far back as your great grandparents, you've done a lot. But I understand that's a luxury that not everybody else has. It is a journey, and that journey in itself is Odinani. So even if it's going to be difficult to embark on it and take it on. You're going to be, anything you're doing, you're going to be using your ancestors' specific names. I'm trying to see how many far back I can go. I can go back. Let me see. O father-in-law. Oh wait, well, hold on. Fidele, so father-in-law, Ukwebu, Emenaha, Ejike. So I can go back about 6-ish generations. And I know the stories of about from 5 down. The Ejikes are vague, or still vague in my understanding. Those are my furthest back ancestors, and stuff like that. So I can go back about 5, and I'm like obsessed with these things. If you can't tell, the average person can't go back that far. If you're also able to go back that far, that's phenomenal. Otherwise, yeah, just go back as far as you can. Great grandparents is good enough. Nadia Ocrafo uses Igbo cosmology in her fiction. She calls it Afro-Jujuism, or like Afrofuturism, but her own special term. Yep. Do you think Odinani will inform? Oh, okay. I've read this part. Haitian, my fault. Okay, yeah. I even during the war, the Biafra War, I know Haiti recognized Biafra immediately. So the Haitian people and our people have a very close bond. I believe what was said, or the history, is that one of the fathers of the Haitian Revolution was an Igbo person, and I think that in the Caribbean at the time, they still kept track of where people were from pretty easily. It wasn't as discouraged as it was in the United States, though they later switched to that U.S. Everybody switched to the U.S. model where they discouraged that. Yoruba practices are called Isise. Yeah, yes. Part of it is called that, but yes, absolutely. Eshishe. Yes, you're right. You look Jamaican. A lot of slaves that were sent to Jamaica are from the Biafra region, and a lot were Igbo. Yeah, definitely. I think of the slaves set from the Biafra region, I think 80% were Igbo, if not more. So yeah, definitely. I did an ancestry and found that Igbo fourth cousins. Cool. Found foundational Black American. Oh, that's I keep saying I'm going to do my ancestry, but I just haven't prioritized it. But yeah, no, I'd be really interested in seeing if I have cousins. Sometimes I watch television, and I know like a lot of people from the Caribbean and Black Americans here in the U.S. When you say these things to them, they kind of like look at you like, "Is he crazy?" But I can tell what village people are from just by looking at them. Like I know, like most of the time when somebody goes, "Oh, I did my DNA and I found this," I'm like, I could have told you that. And there's a couple of people that I'll look at and I'll see, and I know they're from my place, but if you say that to them, they'll think you're crazy. There's this old man, Mr. Paquette, who I know he's from, I used to work with him. He passed away. He's from where I'm from. And I had a hard time not calling him sir. He forced me to finally call him Mr. Paquette, but I was just so conditioned to treat that guy, him, in a certain way based on just he looked like somebody from back home, and I had compartmentalized, okay, this is how you act with Americans, this is how you act with people from home. But then you get this guy who, like, I know exactly where he's from. It was hard to do that. So him, I don't know if you guys remember the movie High School High. Anybody with it's like John Lovitz, and like it was like a parody of all those movies where the white teacher goes to like the black school and like saves the day. And there was one kid in there named Anne for me. And for me is 100% from my village. 100%. I remember when we first got back from Nigeria, we saw that movie. We all freaked out. We were all just like locked on the screen, like, oh my God, he looks like our boy. Our boy's my uncle. Things like that. So Anne for me's from my village. David Banner's from my village. Who else? That's a whole bunch of them. There's a new, what's that show you've been watching? The one with women, how women kill or something, or there's a movie called Why, or a show called Why Women Kill. The detective in season 2 is from my village. I'm trying to think. I have an extensive list of people that I know for sure are from my village, that type of thing, just because our facial features are obvious. So yeah, if you guys are trying to do DNA tests just off me looking at you, I can do that. I think someone asked earlier, but how would you feel about Igbo cosmology being featured in art / TV, Western media? Yeah, no, that does more than what I'm doing. So I would love it. I would love it because there are different types, modes of reception that everybody has, and some people receive information or receive knowledge best from art, and there are more people who receive art, knowledge from art, than there are people who receive it in like a documentary style, like the way I do it. So that would be phenomenal. Just the book Things Fall Apart has worked as a living museum, in a way that I don't even think Achebe anticipated, that type of thing. So yeah, if I saw it featured in art and so forth, I'd be ecstatic. I'll be happy about it, that type of thing. Now, it already is, right? It may go by a different name, but it already is. There was one, if you guys know the story of Chukwu and Kamosu, the story I told about Chukwu and Kamosu, there's this video that Doja Cat released with The Weeknd. If you guys know the story of Kamosu and Chukwu, go back and watch that video that she released. And it blew my mind when I saw it. It was funny. I shared it with my patrons, but I deleted posts. I'm like, these grown men and women didn't come here to talk about Doja Cat. But if you, sorry, hold on. If you know the story of Kamosu and Chukwu, go back and watch the I don't know what the song's name, but it's like The Weeknd and Doja Cat. Watch that video, and then watch that video and then go watch my first video, which is How God Was Created. Watch that video, then go watch how, and even pay attention to what you're seeing in the video itself. It'll blow your mind. I did my DNA mostly Nigerian, Angolan, and Gabonese. Wonderful. That's awesome. I did my DNA, found Igbo relative, 6th cousin or something like that. That's really cool. Trying so hard to learn to draw because I want to make a graphic novel on Igbo culture and cosmology. Oh my God, please do that. Please do that. Please do that. Whatever you need from me, I'm here. I used to draw a lot when I was younger. Though I wouldn't say I can teach anybody how to draw right now. I've probably lost the skill, but yeah, please do that. That'd be phenomenal. That means a lot. I'll never pay attention to the video. Definitely watch it again. Yeah, the Doja Cat one. Watch just every single thing that happens in that video. And then if you don't know the story already, go to How God Was Created, I think. It's the first video I made. It's about Chineke. Yeah, sometimes I think Hollywood is stealing their ideas from us with smaller YouTube channels. It can happen. I can see that. Do you practice herbalism? Yes. So I am a makeshift herbalist here at home. Things like that. I just apply what I know and see where it goes from there. What's really interesting is Odinani has expanded my capacity for medicinal, or let's call it scientific thinking. So there are certain things about plants that I realize now that I didn't used to realize before. One of the things I learned is that plants resemble what they affect in the body, right? And this is something that a lot of healers understand almost intuitively and so forth. But a lot of plants impact what they, or look like what they impact in the body and so forth. So knowing that, it gives me kind of like, I can look at a plant and I have an idea of what it does, and I'll look it up and it ends up being true. So that's been a very cool thing. As far as herbs and stuff, like the example I always use is this oseoji, right? Kind of looks like a brain, doesn't it? It is phenomenal for the brain and phenomenal for thinking, and so forth. Of course, it is a stimulant, but it is also good in other capacities as far as the brain goes. I think I need to hit show on this one. Anybody working on Igbo art, please hit me up. Arts by Yoji. I think it's Yoji. I love to see it, and I've done some myself. Oh, please share, by the way. Please share. So I'm having a New Yam festival, a digital one, just like we're doing now, but I want to think of a way to do it bigger, where it's not just me talking. That's going to be coming up during the New Yam Festival moon. I'll send out details on that pretty soon. I was going to plan it out this week, but I've been bedridden and trying to record as much as possible. So at least I was able to do a little bit of that. But yeah, I'm going to be doing one on that. So maybe, sharing different works would be something we can do there. I mean, it's a festival celebrating the abundance of the year and what we were able to produce with our hands. So that would be cool if we can share art and things like that there too. What is your favorite Irishi? That is a very cool question. My favorite Irishi. I think it has been bouncing back and forth between Nechukwu and Ekwensu. It was originally Ekwensu, but as I learned more about Nechukwu or Eke, what she is, or her, what she encapsulates is mind. It's just mind-boggling. It's incredible. So it is tied between Ekwensu and Nechukwu. Now, as far as Ekwensu goes, there was a lot that I learned in learning about Ekwensu and so forth that I resonated with, and that made a lot of sense, and it connected a lot of loose ends and so forth. So I really like that as well. Especially since it kind of ties back to the question that somebody had asked earlier about Igbo landing, especially since a lot of what made me, put a closer eye into what our ancestors were teaching was the martial aspect, the ability, the enhanced capacity to fight that seemed to come from this. So what made me curious, like, hey, where is that strength coming from? Like, what is that? Why was it that in Haiti, when they came back from the Haitian Revolution, they were writing that when you'd shoot them, they wouldn't die. When you'd shoot people, they wouldn't die. And then you go back home in Nigeria, you hear these stories too. When something breaks out, there's a fight, you're shooting these particular people, they won't die. Those types of things. That's all tied to Ikwensu and spirits similar to Ikwensu. So that fighting spirit has always been really interesting to me as a relatively young man. Let me see here. Do you think Igbo culture is lost to Christianity / assimilation? For example, Chimamanda Adichie told her college roommate that she had no tribal music, just Mariah Carey. I don't know. I found that funny. Lost? No, not at all. But the average person has never been interested. I think one thing that people think is that that these are just the things people were walking around talking about back in the days. This is like for philosophers. These are for people who are thinkers and people who are willing to examine and so forth, right? The average person, I don't think the average person would approach it as needed, of course, but it's a certain type of person that is interested in these things. Now, do I think it's gone anywhere? I used to think so, but now I understand that's not the case, and I think there's actually a revival where the average person is becoming now interested in these things. So there was a point where absolutely you could say that, like around like let's say 90s, early 2000, Christianity had like a stranglehold on everything back home, and especially in the diaspora with like the recent arrival Nigerians. But that's kind of seen as like old school thinking now, and I think and people are loud and proud about their culture. Somebody pointed this out that back in the day, if you were to post anything about ancestors, you just get all these comments saying, God forbid, I bind you in the blood of Jesus, all this crazy stuff. But now if you post something about ancestors, it's all like almost all positive responses. And they'll get that one person that will be like, please, my brother, you must repent or some shit. And then everybody will start insulting that person. Come get out of here. What's wrong with you? Yada, 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 yada. So the tide has turned. I don't think it went anywhere. And I don't think the average person was ever interested in these things to begin with. This is even, there's an Odinani of Western culture too. It's called Hermetics. You understand? And the average Westerner is not interested in Hermetics. They don't know what that is. They are what we would call Ofeke. But then there are people in that culture that understand it. And once you understand it, you'll completely understand why the Western world functions the way it does, why certain symbols are used for certain things, why certain rituals are done, why a judge wears black, all these different things. You'll start understanding once you understand the Hermetics of that society. But like, 90% of the population does not care about that. Now, I think that's how it was back home too. So no, I don't think it's going anywhere. I don't think there's any way for it to go. To a very great extent, this thing comes out of us as African people. You understand? It comes out of us. So no matter where you put us, if you give it time, that thing will come out, and it's what it's going to be, right? I think that after all of the religions and so forth of the world go, Odinani is still going to be there because it comes out of us naturally. It comes out of us naturally. And that's why you'll see all these parallels throughout the continent and in the diaspora and so forth. Oftentimes we think that it's because of influence or this person talked to that person. But then if you get into these systems, if you get into Odinani, you'll see that most of the learning is internal. You learn to do the learning and you pull that learning out of you from the outside, from the inside out. It goes from the inside out. And we are similar within, right? So as long as we live, we're always going to be able to pull from that well that is within us, and it's not going anywhere. It could be dormant for thousands of years. It'll still come out somehow. So Munachi says, I think it is. A lot of people think it is. I don't. I used to too, but I can definitely see the tide is changing. Even with my own channel, I really don't get any negative feedback as far as like, it'll be like how I pronounce things, and then every now and then you'll get somebody that's like, yeah, just pronunciation. That's it. Just how I pronounce things. That's the only, and that's not negative. It's necessary corrective feedback because I do need to pronounce things right. Does the market day you are born say something about your purpose and character? Yes, absolutely. Purpose, maybe not as much, but character, yes. So the market day you are born, for those that don't know, there are 4 market days, or there are 4 days, which are Eke, Uri, Afo, and Nkwo, right? So each of those days has certain characteristics and a certain nature, right? So the day you are born in is going to speak to characteristics about you and your nature. It's actually going to the day you are born in, one of those days, Eke, Uri, Afo, and Nkwo, is the name of your Agun. That is the name of your Onyowa. That is the part of you that reincarnates. And if it's also one of your names, right? So if I was born on Afo, you understand. When I die, when I reincarnate, I'm also going to reincarnate on the Afo day again. Every single time I come back for my 7 cycles, I'm going to reincarnate on the Afo day, which is the 3rd day. Some people are born on Uriye or Uriye people, right? You understand. Others are Nkwo, aka all that stuff, and they're always going to come back on that day. And each of those days will say a little bit something about the individual's character. Now, the one that everybody knows the best as far as their nature is the Uriye, those born on Uriye. Uriye people are very creative. Uriye people are wealth. Oh, somebody sent a donation. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, thank you for that. That was a surprise. That was cool. What was I going to say? Uriya people are very creative and they are money oriented. They're good with money and wealth and things like that. And they're not as traditional. They like to operate outside the box or challenge things. They have a rebellious streak. That's the one I know very well is the Uriya people. I know that Afal people are more traditional or more grounded or more family oriented as well. They're more very family focused and things like that. And then Eke and Nkwa, I still have to learn about their characters. But I know that Eke is a powerful day. Eke is the senior of the 4 days, right? So on Eke Day, it's also a Sabbath. A lack of better terms, not saying that we're Jews. Before somebody takes that and starts running, it is a Sabbath day for women, So for those of you who are patrons at patreon.com/themedicineshell, I have a calendar that tells you which market day that you're dealing with or that we're on. So if you want to take it a step further, like Homegirl Healer had asked how somebody can practice Odinani and things like that. If you want to take it a step further, one of the things you can incorporate into your routine is resting on Eke Day if you're a woman. Yeah, that is your special day. You're going to rest, regroup, connect with yourself, and then go about your day, the rest of the week. But AK is your rest day if you're a woman. Nothing of importance is done on AK Day because nothing of importance is done on AK Day in a lot of communities. So there are no weddings. You don't do weddings. You don't do what was the other one? Funerals and weddings were the ones that you don't do. And that's it's just out of respect for the women because oftentimes they can't participate. But for most communities, it's whatever market day, your community's market day is the one that you guys will hold in a certain regard. So where I'm from, it's Nkwa. We operate the Nkwa market of the, in every Igbo community has a market that it runs, right? It has its own market. And then on each of those days, like, if it's on Nkwa, so all of the surrounding communities will come to Nkwa to do business and set up shop and buy and things like that. And then on the next day, which is Eke, we all go to Eke, and then it rotates like that. So on Nkwa Day, there are certain rules in my community. You can't fight, all these different things. It's a day of peace and so forth. One, because we got a bunch of guests, so we want to look good. And then two, because the spirit of our market is Nkwa. So if you want to incorporate these things into your lifestyle, those are some ideas that you can incorporate. Having a day of rest within those 4 market days. AK is the most common, especially for women. And then otherwise, it would be the market day of your community's market day. But since a lot of us are in diaspora and things like that, you can pick whichever day you feel you need rest and make that your rest day. Uriya Day is good for business, so try not to rest on that one. Let's see here. Do you think you both know? Okay, I already read that part. There's a market day. Yes, I read that. Is Igbo cosmology is the science without equations? Man, wow. Njoku, that was very profound. Njoku says, or is asking, is Igbo cosmology a science without equations? I am willing to say that there are equations in there. Even there are equations within. So yes, it is a science, 100%. It's science. That's what it is. So you said it perfectly. But there are equations within. Oh, it's not just because I'm not saying them. Just I don't know them doesn't mean there are equations within, especially if you get into higher levels and so forth than what I typically describe. But my mother described Sunday or Wendy as sweet song. So, Sunday or Wendy. Yeah, I think that's a good translation. Perfect. How do you search the calendar? I want to search for what day New Yam Festival is. If you are a patron, the calendar should be on your Google Calendar. So it'll appear on your Google Calendar. It'll be on the left-hand side. It's Iguafo, IGU Afo by, which is an X, the medicine shell. By the medicine shell. So it's there. I think that thing picks up. I think that picks up. Okay, I'm coming. Michael asked a question. I'm coming. Have you ever seen the one scene in American Gods where Mr. Nancy tells the slaves to kill the masters and burn the ship? That was totally Ebo landing. Orlando, yeah. My wife's saying that's why they kicked.
They didn't kick him out, but they changed his role in second season. Third season was from there.
Yeah, well, he came out on live and was talking about that. Yeah, my wife was saying, Ross. Yeah, I seen that scene. I didn't go further past that. I didn't go further than that. I didn't go further past that scene. My wife watches it. She was saying that's. I'm sure you guys already know that was that scene. After that scene, they changed Mr. Nancy's character a lot, and then after doing the changes, they just outright kicked him off the show. Yeah, despite no, he came out on like a live and was saying, "Hey, he's not going to be on the show anymore." This and that. And I think he was like the most popular character, so it made no sense.
He was a fun character, and he came out. He said some really pro-black, because the first season started with them on a slave ship.
I don't know if you guys can hear my wife as well. Yeah.
Oh, I'm not here.
No. All right, I scared her off. But yeah, no. So yeah, I seen that. I seen that. So let's see here. Why Washington D.C. is laid out the way it is. Bionics, you know that one. Heavy ritual. We talk about Igbo, cosmology, all these different things. You understand it. It's every culture has its own lens on this thing as well, has its own way of seeing this thing and applying it and so forth. And the more you learn in one space, the more you'll start seeing in another, and more things start coming alive. So there's very much a Western hermetics, you understand, and that's that. If you go to Washington D.C., you just know that you're in a shrine, straight up. So yeah. Have you ever heard of mugworts that used in Igbo land? With a name like mugwort, I'm not sure there's much of it in Africa, but I mean there could be. I'm not an herbalist at all. It's probably has a different name back home, and so forth. But I don't know too much about it, so you'd have to educate me. Seeing the episode, I would love to see Arashi represented in American Gods. Yeah, that'd be nice. I think. We've been late in getting our information out as far as Igbo culture goes. So I wouldn't expect to see it soon. But one day, who knows? Facts, no problem. Michael Irving, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I see you had asked a question. I think I missed it. Okay, yeah. Can you speak a little bit about the Arashi / Abara of the forest? So the forest itself is associated with Agon. I hope that's not too confusing. The forest itself is associated with Agon, but each forest then has its own chi. You understand? So with each forest having its own chi, each forest is also going to have and it's going to maybe become an Abara of its own, or maybe an Abara of its own. Sometimes an Arushi, an Arushi manifests in different levels, and one of the levels will be the Okofia, or the forest of the Arushi. So each forest is going to be its own different thing, but the one most commonly associated with forest is Arobinago. Arobinago is a manifestation of Almumu, or an Arashi built for the purpose of channeling Almumu. And Arobinago is associated with the forest, or the deep forest, or vegetation, and so on and so forth, and that type of thing. So I can do a video on Arobinago very soon. When I was asked what my favorite Abara or Arobinago was also up there with Nechukwu and Ekwensu. So Arobinago is associated with the forest. Now, Arobinago is not universal, so it's in a certain part of Igbo land where it is acknowledged and so forth. And it is said that individuals who have Arobinago in their altar, or an altar to Arobinago in their home, are inclined to wealth. They are inclined to wealth because, again, it is associated with Almumu. It is a channeling of Almumu, and Almumu is associated with blessings, wealth, fortune, those types of things. It is your manifesting energy. So that part of you that is able to will what you want into reality. not to say without, or I don't want to say without the action, but it's not the active part that makes it happen. It is the part of you that wills things into reality. So the active part is your Ikenga that makes that happen. So Ikenga is also associated with wealth. The combination of those two things, Omomo being your, wrong hand, Omomo being your a feminine manifesting energy, and then Ikenga being the masculine doing energy. So the combination of those two things, you'll be a very wealthy person if that's what you're pursuing, if that's what you want. But Iro Binago is the one associated with the forests. It is a means, or it is an encapsulation of Omumu. And I have a video called Omumu Explained for those who want to know more. But it channels that energy. So it's also associated with the forest and the vegetation itself, as is Akon. So is market day according to local time or Igbo land time? Man, that's a very good question. So I did it I just did it in correlation with my own calendar. So I think the way, if you're talking about this, if you're specifically talking about the calendar online that for the patrons, I did it based on my calendar, and I think that, of course, it's going to change based on wherever you're standing. So it's going to change once the new day comes, and wherever you're at, it's going to follow that. But the market day is based on where you're at. If that makes sense. It's if you're in Jamaica or if you're in Hong Kong, it's going to turn to a new day in correlation with whatever your new day is. I hope I'm answering your question. I feel like it's a little more complicated than what I'm answering, but it's based on wherever you're standing in space and time, more so than local time or the time in Igbo land. I would really like to understand if there's any connection between physiologies and our physiologies and the cycles of the moon. There is absolutely a major connection between the cycles of the moon and individual physiologies, or the human body and human, just your essence, if you want to call it mind, body, spirit, and so forth. In my video, I think it's more explained, either more explained or Ancestors Explained. I kind of explored the idea of consciousness, or how much of you are you really in control of? Because if you think about it, the only thing in your body that you even control are your ligaments and your muscles. Everything else is not in your control. Your heart's not in your control. Your liver is not in your control. Nothing else is in you don't control. It's all doing its own thing, right? So then where does self begin and the self end? Well, there's a connectivity even beyond that. There are things that control, or things that have say as to who you are and what you'll do beyond that. The person you're standing next to has an effect internally. It has control internally. The things you think about have control but you don't control them, that type of thing. And then another one that we're all aware of on a higher level is the moon, the sun and the moon. You understand? Both have major control on what's going on inside you and what you are and who you are and what you end up doing. So yeah, the moon has major effects on us physiologically. It's most evident, as far as the moon goes, it's most evident with women. Or it's more obvious with women. I've also noticed, I spent time working in psychology. A lot of people with alternative configurations of the mind were very affected by specifically the full moon. And if you want to know how much, but it's not just certain people or just women. If you want to know how this pans out, go look at the crime rate on a full moon. There's just a whole lot of different things you can look at on the different cycles of the moon. Take any chart that charts human behavior, and you'll see 9 out of 10 times an almost perfect correlation. So yeah, the cycles of the moon have serious effects on individuals, far and wide, most specifically women. Ikenga Nation said, other than female menstruation. Yeah, it goes well beyond menstruation. And our ancestors acknowledge this. That is why a lot of what is done, you understand, a lot of what, okay, this is done at this time of the year because of this is done at this time of the day because of this, is built off of understanding, of observation and understanding. Okay, I understand that this is the relationship I have with the moon. This is how I'm going to act to make sure. The understanding I have this relationship with the moon, that's Odinani. That's the thing I'm talking about. That's okay, what relationship do I as a person have with the moon? Okay, now that I understand that, how am I going to act so that I can be in alignment and make sure that this thing this connection works out, this relationship state works in my favor as a person. That is Omenala, right? Omenala is as it's done on the land, Odinani as it is on the land. So the relationship between those two things is exemplified in that example, is displayed in that example. Illustration. Is Eke Day connected to Eke of Chi and Eke? Yes. And Eke meaning snake, all connected to yes. My name, I'm glad you said that. So Eke is a very commonly used word in the Igbo language, and it means a whole lot of things. If you change how you say each letter, it turns into an entirely different word. What ended up blowing my mind is that every single one of those things are connected to the exact same concept. It's not by mistake or by coincidence, or they ran out of letters that snake, rope, or tie, divide, create, creation. You can go on and on and on. If anybody's can think of any other EKE or any other words that are created from EKE in the Igbo language, are all connected to the idea of Nechuku, or the divine feminine, or the universe itself. It's all tied together there. No pun intended. Rope is also one of them. That type of thing. So, for example, Nechuku or Eke is, if you watch my Nechuku Explain video, if you haven't, it's one of my personal favorites, or I'm pretty proud of it. I like that video a lot. So Nechuku is it when so Nechuku died in an explosion, and the universe is the expansion of her body through space. You understand? Now, Nechuku is also represented with using the spiral. So whenever you see in Uli and in Sibiri, Eke is depicted in the spiral, right? Now, both Eke the snake is depicted that way, and the Eke, the concept. Eke is also called Akaraka. It's also sometimes known as Akaraka, right? Akaraka is the etchings on the palm, right? This is associated with Eke. And the symbol for Eke, the Akaraka, is also a spiral. The symbol for Onwa, the moon we were just talking about, is also a spiral. You'll just see these things, they're all somehow connected to each other. When you go into on a cosmological level, it's all right there. You'll say, oh, okay, we're all saying the exact same thing. All these things come from that same source. So yes, the Eke died, she resurrected as Anna, the earth, who's also a spiral. The earth manifests. You've seen the Animals Explained video. I explain how the more can be shared with an animal. Anna shares shares with the python, or manifests as the python on an animal level. The energy that is Anna manifests as a python on an animal level. There you go. So, and then that python is also Eke. It's also called Eke. Anna herself is Eke, a reincarnation of her mother, which is Nechuku Kamosu, and so forth. So yeah, Ugo Chukuchi says bars. There you go. Is the Patreon link in the videos? Yeah, the Patreon link is pinned to the top. I shout out the Patreon in every video. So if you're looking for the Patreon, it's patreon.com/the medicine shell. Patrons have access to Igwa Afon Ndibo. So it is my Igbo calendar. It'll tell you it connects to your Google Calendar, Outlook, and Apple calendars. It tells you what market day it is, different rites and observances, and what moon it is, and also explains what the moon means, or what goes into that moon, and so forth. Patrons also have access to my full in-house library. So all of the documents that I use, the digital documents that I use for my research. So it has hundreds of books, firsthand accounts, articles, and so forth that go into a wide range of topics I haven't even talked about. So if you're interested in jumping ahead or digging into a certain topic, that's there as well. And then we also have readings. We also have an in-house Dibia who can do readings, who can do your Akaraka, figure out the day you reincarnated, who you reincarnated from, and what it all means. If you're receiving messages, or there's something that you need help decoding, he's the person that helps you do that. Everybody so far that I've spoken to him has been pretty happy. We had some issues these past month-ish into a little bit into this month. But I came to find out he was doing an initiation, so he wasn't able to respond to people quickly. So those who didn't get a response in an apt time, I apologize on that. But he was doing somebody's initiation, and he's now done with it. And the individual, I believe, is now an Izengwai, or has begun her process of becoming an Izengwai. She was actually somebody who was watching the channel and everything like that too. So it was really cool to see her growth and her take that path and see that the path resonated with her. That was really cool. So that's what he was busy with. And but yeah, everybody's been pretty happy with their results and so forth. It was an African, Benjamin Banneker, who designed DC. Yes, absolutely. So, but he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing. So yeah, it's supposed to help vision, astral projection. Okay, Ross, I think you were bringing up the plants. I said mugwort. I'll look into it. That's very interesting. I used it some other day, and I had the most vivid dream of flying. That's interesting. Yeah, I'll look into it. I don't doubt it for 1 minute. Design the streets, but not the monuments. Those are the shrines. Yes, the monuments themselves. Very specific things about them. Very specific. I was counting the amount of times that the awful shows up in Washington, D.C. and where it's placed. There's in the West, the awful is known as the fascist, and it is where the term fascism comes from. As crazy as that sounds. So it is a bundle of sticks tied together, and I believe the Etruscan, they say it's Roman, but it's not Roman. The Etruscans predated the Romans. I'm trying to look like this. And so the Etruscans had this tradition of the what is called the fasces. I'm probably saying it wrong, which is a bundle of sticks tied together, and it is a staff of authority, a staff of ancestral authority, and so forth. They have them all over Washington, D.C. in the Washington Monument, where you see Abraham Lincoln. He's sitting. I'm trying to show my hands. He's on that thing. Look at what is under both of his arms, right? Those are awful. They have one of George Washington standing next to a gigantic one. That is also awful. That type of thing. The needle, that type of thing. I think the needle is Abala, is associated with Abala, which is the more of Anyanwu, So Anyanwu is the sun, and the rays or Abala I can't talk, or Abala. So that is Abala is used to describe the reach of God onto the earth, right? The extension of God onto the earth. The way your more is the part of you that shines out, like your aura, that type of thing. So that's why looks like the Washington Monument looks like a single ray of the sun, single ray. So that's what the whole thing is, a shrine. And so yeah, now what the shrine is used for is up to them. What the shrine is used for is up to them, so that type of thing. Why is Ekwensu so unfairly demonized? Because of a survey that was taken in Sierra Leone by, what's this gentleman's name? Jai Crowder, who was one of the pioneer people in trying to, gross. Apologize about that. One of the people who pioneered the Christian mission into what is now called Nigeria. Ajayi Crowder was a Yoruba man, and he was the person who worked on what's called the primers for different languages in the Igbo, or in what is now called Nigeria. And these primers were just like little books to help the missionaries translate quickly, or get to translating the languages quickly so they can talk to the locals and convert them and so forth. And so when they were trying to piece together how they're going to approach this whole Igbo thing, they encountered some slaves in Sierra Leone that were from Igbo land. And they had asked the slaves, who is the devil in your religion? And they didn't have an answer. So they kept asking different slaves, things like that. And they came with 3 options. It was Agon, Amadioha, or Ekwensu. You understand? So they surveyed all of the slaves, and Ekwensu ended up winning the vote. So because of that vote, they decided to translate Ekwensu as the devil. You understand? Because somebody had to be the devil for them to go with this mission. And so that is how Ekwensu ended up getting demonized by the Christians. But it's interesting because I don't really see it as a bad thing as far as the concept of Ekwensu goes, because those that didn't end up being appropriated by the Christians ended up being the ones that get forgotten, right? So people who have watched one Nollywood movie in their life know Ekwensu, but very few people know Agbo unless you know Odinani or unless you've lived back home. And with the importance of Agbo, that would kind of blow your mind that, wow, really, that Agbo is lesser known, but Agbo was never, they didn't find a way to put Agbo into the Bible. Though there is a concept of Agbo in there, but that's another thing. And so that's how Ekwensu ended up becoming the devil and becoming demonized. But Ekwensu was always feared. Ekwensu was never, it wasn't like Ekwensu was like beloved prior. Ekwensu was always feared. Ekwensu was meant to be feared. Ekwensu was meant to be dreaded, that type of thing. I always compare Ekwensu to young men. Right. So if you have a community and there's an abundance of young men sitting idly, you're all in trouble. They're going to get into mischief. They're what there's called okay. Their masculine energy is extremely high, but they don't. It's not controlled. They don't have the control yet. That the way an older man would. You understand? And so that particular thing, that particular energy is in its purest form in young men. And it can be very destructive if they are idle. Young men will, by nature, if they're idle, they'll form gangs. They will compete against each other at very high stakes. That's just what that energy does. But if the community is under attack, if the community needs protection, if the community needs somebody to enforce order, those are the people that you're going to run to. You understand? So that's the relationship that people had with the concept of Ekwensu. Ekwensu was always feared. Ekwensu was always a dreaded force. It was never that type of thing. But when it was time to fight, it was time to protect yourself, it was time to protect your family, it was time to protect the community, that is what you go to. You understand? That is exactly what you go to. It's like a gun, the person, you're getting attacked by a gun, the gun's going to keep you safe. A gun can keep you safe from the threat of a gun. In theory, that doesn't always work out that way. It almost never works out that way, by the way, but people get guns to protect themselves from other guns, that kind of thing. So that is why Ekwensu is unfairly demonized. Where can I get Aji? There's places that sell them online, that sell Aji online. If you're living in a bigger city, any African store should be able to help you, most specifically a Nigerian store. They'd be good at that. And so forth. I just found one that has the one I used to go to, they wouldn't cover them. They would just kind of have them out in the open. So by the time you'd buy them, they'd be like leathery for some reason, or like they'd be old. And I found a really nice one. So different African stores throughout the country, if you're talking about the US, will have Aji. Otherwise, I know that there's places they sell them online. I think they're called, or in English it's called a cola. So just search for a cola, buy cola online, buy African cola. Try to buy the Igbo cola that breaks in 4 pieces. There's also one that breaks exactly in 2. That's called Goro. You can use it as a substitute if you don't have the 4-part one, or the one that's naturally the smaller one that's supposed to break into 4 parts. But the proper one is the one that breaks in 4. Goro, the 2-part one, is seen as like a lesser Aji. It's not the one our ancestors used. It's from the north. It's like an Hausa Aji. The north in Nigeria, that is. They did a similar thing, the pagans, which is how we got Christmas and Easter. Yeah, exactly. So the exact same thing. It's really interesting too. If you look into these concepts from like what they call the European pagan religions, things like that, you'll see a lot of parallels, not only with our beliefs, but our history, the exact same way that their concepts were also appropriated. It was the exact same process happened to everybody, or seemed to have happened to just about anybody in history, except the lucky few. What if the 7-day week is a way to stagger women's menses and avoid synchronizing society? So social behavior is less predictable. I don't think there's a malicious intent behind the 7 days. Yeah, I don't think there's like an intent behind it. The 7 days are the planets. That's what that is. So each planet gets its day. That's how that calendar was put together. And I think it is, and this is just me being an armchair, maybe anthropologist or anthropologist. The 7 day cycle is used by nomadic cultures. One thing I noticed in my research is that things formed by nomadic cultures are more sky oriented. Like there's a more emphasis on sky, and then our own culture, which is agrarian, is more ground focused, more earth focused, that type of thing. And so a lot of things in like Eurasia, most of Eurasia was put together by nomadic cultures. At one point, most of them were nomadic. I mean, they had to get to Africa from Africa there somehow. So there's an emphasis on like the sky, and there's an emphasis on like the planets and things like that. That is not as strong in the African systems. It's there, but it's not as strong or it's not as fundamental. So in a lot of those cultures that were formed using the sky or through looking at the sky, because they're nomads, you'll see the 7 day week. And so that 7 day week is just named after the planets. It's not, I don't think there's malicious intent behind it. If the cultures form these things to survive. So if somebody puts something together just to mess with women, it's his own women he's gonna mess with, Nobody wants to be, or walking around with a cattle with a bunch of confused women. So no, I don't think that's what it is. The iron waste at Leja is carbon dated 4,000 plus years old, the oldest today. What would have the Proto-Igbo civilization have been like, given that Europe was just entering the Bronze Age at this time? That is something that is unusually ignored by let's call it like formal historical circles, that the oldest site of not just ironworking, but like mass production, not just like I found a spear here and there, mass production over thousands of years, is in Africa, most specifically in Igbo land. If you go even further than that, the oldest signs of mass production period are the iron, the picks, spears, and axes at a place called Uturu. And at Uguele, I go into that a lot in my videos because it ties in. Like, if you know Igbo cosmology, you know exactly what was happening there. Our ancestors already know this very well, that type of thing. Even today, when you're forming offal, when you're getting your offal, you get the offal bag has to be, for my people, where I'm from, they get their bag from Uguele. You understand, from the market at Uguele. That place is very important. But that site right there is the oldest, that site is older than human life outside of Africa. So by the time they were building those things in that site, that the Homo sapien had not left Africa yet. The only other thing they found that's of that age range is a piece of cloth in what is now Morocco. This was the time of the woolly mammoths. Like, this was not what we even know as recorded history. This is far back. That's why a lot of the, Igbo people are from Israel. It's very silly. It's very silly. There are multiple generations of artifacts that outdate the existence of human life in the landmass of Israel, or that we now call Israel, or even the Middle East, that by thousands of years. But this is it's not well known for some reason. Maybe one day someone whites will put it on the screen and everybody will now say, oh, okay, there it is, But what would the civilization have looked like? It's hard to say, but I think that particular civilization will go very far in explaining what we call the Bantu migrations. If you look at the timing of the Bantu migrations, and if you look at the fact that one of the things that all of the Bantu cultures have in common is iron, the fact that they work iron, they started doing the research on, why do these Africans have iron and the others don't? The others were like the Sands people. I can't remember, I don't know what they call them now, the Keo Sands people of South Africa. Somebody was researching them, and then they came to find that the other group of Africans, which kind of look different than the Keo Sands people, had iron and they farmed, but whereas the Sands people were nomadic. So they're trying to figure out what was the difference, and that's how the Bantu theory got formed. So if you look at a lot of the parallels and commonalities in these African cultures, I'm willing to say that it comes from that original civilization. That's what we want to call it. It comes from that, because the evidence is there, the iron is there, the method of iron. There's a very specific method of iron working, and then throughout Central Africa and further west on West Africa, you will now start seeing these very clear cultural parallels. A lot of these concepts I'm talking about, if you go into a lot of different cultures in Africa, not only is it the exact same thing, you'll even see exactly how the separation happened, right? So, for example, with masquerades, right? A lot of the masquerades in those cultures have very similar features, and just I remember when I was very young, I didn't understand Africa as a whole. I had a friend from Ethiopia, and I remember asking her if they had masquerades in her village, and she said no. And I thought that was super strange because I couldn't imagine it. But like, it's only a specific type of African that has those masquerades, and that thing I think is tied back to that original civilization. There's a tribe in Gabon where they have a particular masquerade. It's raffia. And what I know based on my research is that the raffia masquerades are the older masquerades. My next video is going to be called is on the 4 world ages. So in the different world ages, or our ancestors conceptualized the human history in 4 ages. And on those different ages, there are different things that we wore. So what is said is that in Ugachi, when we first started putting on clothing, the first things we started wearing were raffia. So when you see masquerades that are raffia, that is what is depicting. It's depicting the first ancestors. Those are the older ones. If you see a masquerade made of cloth, it is a newer masquerade. It is from the age where we started wearing cloth. Well, there's one masquerade in Gabon that I found was very interesting. It had a color pattern on its face that told me it's being informed by the exact same thing that Odinani is informed or speaking about, right? Because I understood what each of the colors meant. And it had leaves that hung from its mouth. And it comes in from the north, right? And Gabon, our land is north. It's like northwest of Gabon, or this area in Gabon, and it carries leaves in its mouth. And so I looked at those leaves to see what they were, and lo and behold, they were anti-malarial. Well, if you've read books like I've mentioned, Guns, Germs, and Steel, one of the things that makes the Bantu migrations, or that migration of Africans through the continent, so remarkable is that human beings move side by side. They don't go north and south, because once you start going north and south, you're entering different climate zones. When you enter different climate zones, that means the food changes and the diseases changes. So if you have an immunity to something up here, right, once you go down here, suddenly you're going to start getting sick and you might die, right? And so before vaccines, which Africans have been doing for it's an African. A vaccine is Odinani. Vaccines are African culture. You understand? It came from Africa. And when it was first brought to America, they used to call it voodoo. They used to call it African mumbo jumbo. And then they started seeing that it was actually it helped, it worked, and that and I can get into that another time. But they started seeing that it helped and it worked, and they started that, and then they invented it. So, but yeah, so. The thing has an anti-malarial medicine hanging out of its mouth, right? And it comes in from the north. The masquerade comes in from the north. So I looked at that and I was like, okay, this is telling the story of a group of people coming from that direction with this medicine that allows them to do it. That's what I saw in that masquerade. So very long answer to a very short and concise question. That particular civilization, needs to be studied. I think that is the next thing for our generation to do, but it is the missing piece for the entire history of West and Central Africa. Another thing to pay attention to is that I have a folder in my medicine library called Genes and Genetics. And the reason I made a folder on genes and genetics, not only because a lot of patrons were recently DNA tested Africans, but that a lot of history is written in that. Of course, it's a tool for learning, right? And so one thing I found in there was that I'm not a geneticist, so I'm going to say this wrong, but I hope hopefully somebody knowledgeable is hearing what I'm saying, can put the words the right way. There are certain genetic, like, okay, so the older a population is, the more the genes start to vary within that particular area. And so you get more genetic diversity in a single area. So they said that because Africans are older than everybody, that two people in two different villages in the same general area in South Africa are more genetically diverse than a Chinese and an English person. There's more diversity in two villages in South Africa than there are between England and China, right? And so what they found was that in the of all the groups in West Africa, Igbo culture, the Igbo group was the most genetically diverse and kind of by far, you know, and then it kind of gets less, or as you pan out, you become less and less diverse when you get to like Guinea Bissau area or kind of Mauritania area. Then the diversity is not as extreme, you know, but that particular area. So there's a lot to be learned from that particular land, Igbo land. I don't think a lot of research was done. The Nigerian the universities, especially University of Nsukka, are doing a great job of uncovering a lot of these things, doing a phenomenal job. So it's not like the work isn't being done, things like that. But I don't think that the West has taken a strong eye there. And since everybody likes to wait for the West to do things, one day somebody white will put it on a screen, and I don't need to say all this. So I'm confused. Is Ikenga and Irishi a divine metaphysical or metaphysical drawing force? I know Wikipedia isn't the best source, but it labels Ikenga as an Irishi. Ikenga, every single Irishi, well, the term is Abara, but I know what you're saying. I understand. And I've said that before. I use Irishi before too, so it's nothing wrong. Or so you're not completely wrong, let me say. Ikenga is a force, but all of the different Abara are forces, right? Are forces. So if you want to understand Ikenga as an Abara, fine. But Ikenga is a force the way gravity is a force, you know? It's a force. So it is a driving force. You said a metaphysical driving force. That is the best way to put it. That's the most accurate way to place Ikenga. What people decide to call an Irishi is kind of up to them. But an Irishi very literally is the actual edifice, the edifice built, right? The edifice. So if an Ikenga statue, you can call that thing an Irishi of Ikenga, right? It's something built to channel that thing. But that statue itself is not what holds your Ikenga. Your Ikenga is within. The statue is an aid, or sometimes it's an aid, sometimes it's a trophy to your Ikenga, and sometimes it's a roadmap into understanding it and understanding yourself. So when you said metaphysical driving force, you were 100% right. Ikenga is that. The library is serious. Secundayo, I appreciate that. Yeah, still trying to add to it. I haven't done much research this week because, again, I've been sick. So one thing about the e-library that's available to the patrons at patreon.com/themedicineshell is that every time I'm researching a new topic, you'll now see a big flood of new documents I'll put in there. I'm signed up for a bunch of different places where I get journals and these different things and stuff like that. And I got subscriptions all over the place. And so once I'm doing my research, I'll add new things every now and then, but I didn't get a chance to add too much this last time. One, because I'm studying the world ages, I was studying the 4 world ages, and there's not too much written on them. Outside of like actual physical books. So I did actual books this time, so I'm not adding too much. But typically I add a lot. On there. The Alpha in Egypt would be the Wa scepter or even the Ankh. Yeah, the Ankh, 100%. 100%. And I'm willing to believe there's even... Well, let me keep that to myself. But yes, the Ankh, absolutely. They are literally using our spirituality for their own gain. Homegirl here, right? Chat, you know now. You know now. So a kind of Ghana and Ivory Coast have a 7-day week. That's interesting. I would be curious to know how old that 7-day week is, but I don't doubt it at all. Yeah, I don't doubt it at all. But I would be curious to know how old it is. Because somebody, technically right now, the Yoruba use a 7-day week, but originally it was 4. So that's interesting. Is there an Igbo equivalent to Iboga of the Buiti psychedelic? Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about. This was brought up in one of our live, our group studies. We were talking about medicine at the time, and or Ogle. And yeah, I mean, yeah, there's if it's probably used by DBAs as well. You'd have to ask a DBA. I don't have the details on what's used for medicine. I wish I did, and of course, with time, I'll probably learn. But I couldn't tell you if that particular herb is used, though I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it at all. And the vegetation or the plant life in the regions, I think that's from Gabon or Central Africa, is not radically different from what we have at home. So no, I don't doubt it at all. I'm sure they use it, but I'm not the person to ask about specific medicines. Our in-house DBA would probably be able to answer that perfectly. Thank you for proving my theory about Leja and the Bantu migration. I've theorized that and others for so long. I don't believe everything I read in my history books. So blessed. Yeah, it's always good to be skeptical, but there's a very obvious connection to me. There's a very obvious connection between what we call the Bantu migrations and a lot of what was going on in the hill cultures in Igbo land. So like Okigwe area, Leja, and Suka, all those different places. The artifacts in those places are so radically old. Like they're so like older than like non-Black people, so old that and produced in such bulk that you then hear that there's this, you now see that there's this time correlating migration of people with these tools that were being produced in that exact place in abundance. It's hard not to draw the connection, especially since the tools and the methods of making those tools are very similar. They're very, 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 very similar. So do you believe that West Africa actually is the origin of human life? I don't think so. I'm going with the evidence on it, which says East Africa. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think West Africa is the origin. But I believe the oldest male mitochondria is it. I'm probably saying this wrong. The oldest male DNA marker, I believe they called it. And I don't know the science on this because I don't like talking on things that I haven't looked into. So I looked into it on a surface level. I haven't looked into it to see, okay, the person I'm getting this information from, is this true? Are they credible? So on and so forth. So I hope I'm not saying the wrong thing, but there's a group in Cameroon known as the MBO is how it's spelled. And they are the carriers of the oldest male mitochondrial. That's not like, I don't know. One of them DNA markers is the oldest male. They called it mitochondrial atom or something, is from the Umbo culture. And it's very close to the region that we're from, the Biafra region, right? It's just right there, So it's pretty obvious to me that, of course, human life has been in that particular region for an exceptionally long time, but the oldest marks of human, or the oldest like bones and so forth, they keep finding are in East Africa, right? So they keep finding it in East Africa. Now, why the male gene from that region ended up spreading all over the world, I don't know, or end up being the oldest one, I don't know. So it'd be interesting. Good shit, very interesting. That's what's up. I guess was enslaved Boston by Cotton Mather. He introduced inoculation. Thank you, Michael Irving. Thank you so much for this, bro. Yes. I'm gonna say his name wrong. Onesimus. I don't know why I can't read today or ever. He introduced inoculation procedures to Western medicine and laid the foundation for the development of vaccination. Yeah, so this is what happens back home, right? So back home, if a person, or in, back in the days, if a person got sick, what would happen is they would cut that person, right? And then that person's blood, everybody else would be cut, and they would put that person's blood on everybody else's blood. Another thing that would be done was there was a pot that was kept with still water, right? A pot that was kept with still water near the house. And these are just the ones I know about. A still water near the house, and it would not be, it would just be left. And when a baby was born, the baby would have to drink from that pot of still water, right? And what it does is that every single thing that can affect people, right, will gather in that pot, for, or whatever. So that by taking it in, the baby is now inoculated of that thing, or inoculated of all the bacteria and viruses that affect this particular area that we live in, right? Our ancestors were exceptionally conscious of germs and things like that. There's this picture that the Europeans were circulating through Europe of like they got to, I think it was Benin. They were in Benin and the people were washing their feet. They were washing their feet. And they're just like, oh, they must think we're gods kind of thing, how where the mind be going. And they're saying that, oh, they must think that we're God, kind of and circulated or whatever. But what they didn't know was that this is whenever a foreigner is coming into the land, before entering the premise of the people, they would be sat down on a stool and they would have to wash their feet because they understood that the soil on their feet was tracking in new microbes and new life forms that weren't in that community already or may not be in that community already. So the first thing they're going to do is get them off of your feet. That's where you're collecting these things from, right? A lot of Asian cultures, that's why they make you take your shoes off, because there's an understanding that you're carrying the life forms of wherever you're coming from into this place, and we may not be immune to it, that kind of thing. So it's an immunity thing. And so you see all these different things, but the inoculation, so that during the slave trade, there became this premium on Africans with certain sets of markings on their arm. And those markings would show exactly what they were vaccinated of. That was the history of it, vaccinated of. So that when they brought this thing to America, there are multiple articles. I'm looking for them. I'm trying to get them in the medicine library. There are multiple articles written about how it was voodoo, like, because after a while, the white people started like seeing that it was working, that it works. Like, yeah, the slaves don't get sick, but we do, that kind of thing. So there was this period of time where it was controversial. There was all these funny terms they used to use for it. They used to call it African voodoo, that type of thing. They used to call these different names, yada, 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 So all dismissive names, dismissive names. And then after a while, they, as Michael had pointed out, they now started adopting it. I think it was because there was an outbreak in Boston. And they finally gave in and started doing the African thing, which was vaccinating and stuff like that. So yeah, all that stuff has origin with our people. Y chromosome. Thank you very much for that. I'm glad I have a channel that very well-read people are into, because you guys teach me just as much. Where do you find good, authentic diviner in Igbo land? If you are back home and you're looking for any type of work of any sort, go to your father's village. Go to your father's village first, right? If you can't find one there, which you can, but go to your father's village first. I have one that I recommend. I have an individual I recommend for my patrons. But yeah, so I have somebody I recommend for my patrons, and then you can find people online. But just be mindful of what you're looking for. The reason I say Father's Village is because that's where you have, as you probably know, most of your safeguards for anything. So if you're not going to be lied to, you're not going to be taken advantage of, that type of thing. Not that that's common, or not that that's what you're going to expect, period, but you're safest with what's going on in your father's village. So yeah. There's more accountability. Are there any stories of Igbo interacting with pygmies from Central Africa? I believe they were there before the Bantu. Yes, the pygmies were believed to be there before the Bantu. A lot of Igbo cosmology, especially the cosmologies that are related to Igbo, but they're not in the Igbo area, there's this consistent reference to pygmies. It always goes back to pygmies. And I believe, right, from my own research, what I've been able to put together is very obvious that the non-pygmies met the pygmies and learned how to survive on the land from the pygmies, right? So all these things come from them. And it's Ross actually, he's asked a few questions here, sent me this great video. I believe it is in Ghana. Maybe you can correct me. I could be wrong. Or Ivory Coast, where in order to learn medicine, or one of the rituals done to learn medicine was entering a trance state and going into the forest, where you'll meet pygmies who will then teach you medicine and so forth. And you see this type of dynamic repeated throughout the region, into Central Africa over and over and over. The Bini people have a story that when they arrived in their land, they met the people that were there first were a group of pygmies, forest pygmies, and they worshiped a goddess called Neka. Right, that's exactly how the Benin people put it. Neka, if you speak Igbo, is Neka, the highest mother, or mother is the highest mother, that kind of thing. Neka is also one of the names of Nechuku. Nechuku is Neka. That's where you get the that phrase Neka, the pretty serpent, which was also made into a very popular movie and so forth. Is from Neka and that type of thing. So we might be the pygmies, you know. we might be the pygmies because the Benin accounts of the situation and that type of thing, and a lot of people were short. So but yeah, no, the pygmy or the people they call pygmy have a very intimate tie with everything I'm talking about. If you go back far enough, it always points back to them. We're always talking about them. There's always these stories of learning from them and so forth. So yeah, they did that. Quantum entanglement versus spirituality and connection. That sounds like the title for a video, so I'm gonna keep that in mind, but I don't know if I got that. I ain't no pygmy. All right, Ugochi, no problem, bro. Egyptian god Kom is actually the pygmy god. I wouldn't be surprised. I know that there's an account. The Egyptians placed a premium on the knowledge they gained from pygmies and going to Central Africa and that type of thing. They had a high, and I don't know the details of it, but they had a high regard. I know they had a high regard, and there's an account of going back and bringing a pygmy to the pharaoh. There's a famous account of that, and that was considered a huge deal, that type of thing. So yeah, pygmies as in flesh and blood type, or a type of small forest, like both. Yeah, both. The flesh and blood. I think there's a connection between ego ancestors and pygmies. Indeed, well, I think so too. LMAO, please, what is the relationship between Igbos and Israel? What is the nothing. There's no relationship that can be backed by anything historical or anything like that. A lot of the Israel thing, I think that I'm going to do like a whole documentary on this. But a lot of the Israel thing, whenever somebody brings up the Israel thing, the questions to ask are, do you take the Bible as literal history? Or how do you regard the Bible? Is it literal history, or do these things happen? That kind of thing. And the reason to ask that is because every single culture, Christian culture, and every Abrahamic culture, because it's all the same religion, every single Abrahamic culture, if the individuals that follow it take the Bible literally, if they take it literally, the next thing they're going to do is say, okay, who are we in this story? So at all points in European history, there has been, the Europeans have always, okay, we're this guy. The Germans are actually that guy. They're Hashem, Imam, or something, I don't know the different names. And they'll point to these different things. Israel, or the Arabs, oh, we're the children of Sarah, right? Or not Sarah, sorry, the other one, the non-Sarah. Yeah, all the Muslims come from her, that kind of thing. If you go to northern Nigeria, all of the caliphates, all of the emirs now say that they're from somebody in the Quran. You understand? So why does this happen? Because if you take the Bible as literal history, the next thing you're going to ask yourself, okay, who am I in this story? Who am I in this story? That kind of thing. So while Igbo people are very loud about this, some Igbo people, it's not everybody, and it's not even the majority. It's not the majority. It's just the ones that use the internet the most. a lot of internet active Igbo people are into this particular story, and a lot of them are Bible literalists, right? They see the Bible as a literal telling of history. Now, if the Bible is a literal telling of history, then the first man and first woman are Adam and Eve, and then somewhere in the genealogy, that is the Old Testament, you're going to find yourself, and then from there, that's who we are, or the tribe of this person, so on and so forth, right? So a lot of that, you ask, okay, Do you take the Bible as literal history? And what other cultures are you familiar with, right? Because, for example, now Nigerians have a knowledge of the Bible that would blow your mind. Anybody that's taken a theology class with a Nigerian, like a Nigerian from Nigeria, you'll be very impressed, right? Because they know the Bible like well. They just extremely well. A lot of people in Nigeria know the Bible extremely well. And in knowing the Bible extremely well, it is then easy. If you hear 300 Jewish customs, it is going to be very easy to find at least 200 that correlate with your own, because you know them all with such intimate detail. You're going to find these correlations very easily, right? Now, here's another problem. In Nigeria, history is not taught, especially in public schools. Kids in private schools have a little bit of an advantage, but in the public schools where poorer people go, history is not taught. My dad was even telling me when he was younger, they were teaching that we were Hebrews in the school itself, in this for a lack of knowing better, out of not knowing history, that kind of thing. So that type of thing. So history is not taught. So a lot of people, the only other cultures they are familiar with are the other ethnic groups in Nigeria, Hebrews, I don't even say Jews, Hebrews, and the West, specifically Britain and now the United States, right? Like if Spain, they're not going to know. Norway, they're not going to know. I mean, they're going to know it. They're going to know it. They're going to know the cities and things like that, but they're not going to know like how these people eat and how they do the way they know the way Hebrews in the Bible did these things, right? So if you know 300 things about Hebrews, you're going to find, and you find 200 that correlate with Hebrews, you're going to be like, oh, okay, wow, they're the same thing, yada, yada, yada. But if you take that same mind and you study Japanese culture, you're going to find 200 things that correlate with Igbo culture as well. If you study Aztec or Mayan culture, 200. If you study, I'm doing the 4 world ages, the Yuga. It's kind of a spoiler on my next video. The Yuga, right? The Igbo people believe that the world is broken into 4 world ages, right? An age of purity, an age of individualism or separation from the purity, like an awakening age, an age of enlightenment, and an age of darkness. The Hindus have the exact same thing, 4 world ages. Ours are Uga, UGA. Theirs is Yuga. Yuga. I don't speak their language. YUGA. You understand? But people, they're not in the Bible, so you don't know them. You understand? And you're not familiar with them. So if you see these correlations with Jewish culture, it's not because Igbo people are Jewish, it's because we're all human, one. And if you look at all these other cultures too, you're going to find correlations too, wherever you want. You understand? If you knew the correlations between Igbo people and Vietnamese culture, it'd blow your mind. And Igbo people and Germans, Nordic, like the original pagan Nordic Germans, you understand? It'll blow your mind. You understand? If you're looking for those things that you don't understand, this is just a human thing. But again, a lot of people who say these things are only familiar with the West, the other ethnic groups in Nigeria, and what they read in the Bible, which is the Hebrews, that kind of thing. So what is the relationship between Israel and Igbo land? There is none. There's none that can be confirmed by anything historical whatsoever. In the 1980s, right? I think 70s, whenever Festac happened, there was an event called Festac, the Festival of African Culture. And so during Festac, all of the different ethnic groups of Nigeria came and displayed their culture. And something that was noticed about the Yoruba culture was that they had created this mega myth where all Yoruba people come from a guy named Oduduwa, right? This is not true, right? The Oduduwa Yoruba people are a specific group of Yoruba people. I believe the people of Ife. There are other Yoruba people the ones who know their history will tell you that we're not Oduduwa people, that kind of thing. But it's specifically an Ife thing. But the Yoruba people made a conscious decision to say that, okay, we're all going to be one thing. And in being one thing, we're going to need a national myth. So we're going to take this regional Oduduwa story and make it a pan-Yoruba national story. And the idea sold. It came from the political intelligentsia of Yoruba land. Igbo people did the exact same thing too, but they didn't have. There became this effort to kind of copy, right? This regional story of Eri. I've told the story of Eri in my thing. Eri is not the founder of Igbo culture. Even the Eri story, there's Oka people already there when he arrives. He's not the founder of the Igbo people. Eri is the mythological founder of the Umu Eri people, which is a group of specific villages in what is now Anambra So even their neighbors are not Umueri people. Somebody from Aka is not an Umueri person. It's not for us. And if you told a real Aka person that they're from Eri, they'll tell Fire. You understand? Groups like Inri and Enuguku, that specific area. So a lot of people try to take those people's founding myth and make it a pan-Igbo story, and took it even further and said that this Eri is actually Eri. It's pronounced Eri in the Bible. I see ours is Eri and theirs is Eri. So they're the same person, right? And so they connected them, and Eri is the son of God and all these things. And next thing you know, the actual monarchs of that Umueri people start wearing these stars of David, and they decided they are now Hebrews. They have a building that they said is the Obu God, which I know that's not the original name of that, the now unfortunate building, made entirely of cement, but they said that it was made by the Hebrew who came from Israel and founded Igbo culture or whatever, which is ridiculous because cement was invented by the British in about 120 years ago. You understand? Cement is a very brand new thing. So I don't know how it's made of cement. The roof is zinc, but it was found in the time of the Hebrews who did not have cement or zinc. So no, we are not Hebrews. There are plates in Igbo land that are older than human life in Israel. It's a very silly thing. So somebody, so I haven't been reading this. I've been going off. I need to catch up. Sorry. I probably need to wrap up. It's been like 2 hours on a miss. Okay. I read that part. Pardon me while I catch up. Oh Lord, we live in a society exactly because I get confused whenever Igbo brothers and sisters hold the Israeli flag. There are layers to that Israeli flag thing. Israel has been supportive of the Biafra movement, so it's not completely unfounded to do that. But then a lot of it is coming from a place of unknowing that may become a bigger problem in the future. But Israel has been supported. Israel is also supportive during the first Biafra War to the extent that they can. They then had a conflict of their own, and they couldn't do too much as an ally, but they were supportive as well. So it's not completely unfounded, but I think a lot of that original situation was to get support from Israel, because again, a lot of Nigerians, that's one of the only countries they know about. And so then, but yeah, so I mean, I'm not the people that are running the Biafra movement have done more than I could do with the resources they have. So I'm hesitant to be critical of them because I mean, Kanu's in jail, so anybody with better ideas, it's time to step up, kind of thing. But you know, that's just one of the parts where I don't agree with, but I don't have to agree with. They want to fly Israeli flags, that's fine. Because I get confused when I see Eddie. Okay, yeah. They're reaching. We relate to their experiences from the Old Testament. Okay, yeah, like we relate to their experiences in the Old Testament, like they have similar customs and things like that. When I read the Old Testament too, it felt very African. And that's what you're relating to. It's African. It feels African. It's not that it's specifically Igbo. It's the nature of the way the logic of the Old Testament is very, very African. It feels very, and perhaps that's why Christianity was so successful on the continent. It feels African, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is specifically Igbo. You understand? That kind of thing. Somebody said super reach. Hold on, wait. I guess it's much more accessible. I don't live with my father. I don't know how much he'd want to go back to Nigeria. My mom is much more enthusiastic. I think I missed that conversation. That's your village. Yes, your father's village is your village. If people are probably tired of me emphasizing this, probably like, what is this guy's problem? Your father's village is your village. Your father's village is your village. Your father's village is your village. Everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people, you'll ask them where they're from. They'll say, my mom is from here. My dad is from here. No, you're from where your dad is from. That is that piece of information, it's like, let's say we're all learning, I'm teaching you how to drive a car, right? Let's say I'm teaching you how to drive a car. That piece of information is knowing what a car looks like. That's how fundamental it is. It is very, very, very important. Those of you who have the luxury of having parents that are just one generation removed from back home, you're from your father's village. You're from your father's village. Your mother's part of your father's village, and your mother's village is her father's village. So if you're doing it on like I'm being inclusive, that doesn't even make any sense. You understand? So you're from your father's village. So again, the reason I emphasize it, so many people will say like, my dad's from here, my mom's from here, or they'll say they don't know where they're from, what village they're from. It's your father's village. That's everything I'm talking about. It won't matter. It won't come into context unless you know that, right? Again, it's like going to a driving school. That piece of information is knowing what a car looks like, right? Is knowing, okay, when you see these things, it's a car. That's how fundamental it is, Thank you, Derek. It's been a pleasure. You made my night. And head to bed. Hey, good night, Courtney. So I said as in. I'll take a few more questions. I'll probably head to bed as well. Let's see, show. I told him that the white man brought religions and brainwashed Africans to destroy spirituality. Blessing child, I think I missed it. That's your okay. All right, I think we're running out of questions. I think I'm probably going to wrap it up. Who else? Any thoughts on the resurgence of the Tut language in America? Of the Tut language in America. Sorry if this was already asked. Yeah, I don't know what's the Tut language. I don't know what the Tut language is. Habitual B, if you can elaborate on that question a little more. I don't know. Is that, when I see the word Tut, I think Egypt. Is that what we're talking about? Of the Tut language in America. Yeah, no, I don't know what it is. But yeah, you're from your father's village, and you're not, it's not, I don't know if, it's not an inclusivity thing to say that you're from your mom's or that it's a both thing, because all you're saying is that your mother is not married. That's all you're saying. You're not saying what you think you're saying. Your mom doesn't say your mom doesn't say that. She knows what she joined. That kind of thing. Thanks for the knowledge. What's your favorite fufu/soup? Egusi. Egusi, and then sometimes draw soup if I haven't had it in a long time. But I can get tired of draw soup if it's too much. And then I like the draw soup that isn't brown, like the one where you can see all the ingredients very clearly, especially if it has ejele, if it has snail. Hey, Jesus Christ, I haven't had that in so long. But yeah, any stories about Olu? I'm from the Olu region. There's a lot of history there. And what's interesting about Olu is that Olu region is the center of the most densely populated portion of Igbo land, right? So if you look at the population spread of Igbo land, it's almost like that Olu area is the core, and then it just kind of pans out from there and gets less dense and less dense and less dense and less dense and that kind of thing. So I'm from that region. It was one of the last places that Europeans settled, so they didn't write too much about it. And because they didn't write too much about it, a lot of academics I've noticed don't talk about it. They talk about the ones that they did write about, which were the ones on the borders, the peripheral cultures. And so like Aruchuku, you're going to hear a whole lot about Aruchuku, that kind of thing, Onitsha, that kind of thing. So the ones on the periphery are the ones that were written about extensively. And so all the academic work was built, or not all of it, a lot of it was built off of the European work, and then on. So like all of the stuff on the internet is going to exclude the major historical village of like Amiibo, Olo, all these different major places. But what can I share about Olu culture? Olu culture is tied to the culture at Uguele that we were talking about earlier with the artifacts. A lot of rituals from the Olu region. You have to go to Uguele to get this stuff and that type of thing. So it also points to how primordial or old that the Olu, that culture itself is. But yeah, no, Olu is a tough place. Good people. English letters are made into sounds, and you talk by spelling those sounds. Okay. My parents were divorced though, so does that So that may complicate things. It doesn't complicate things. No, you're from your father's village. So if that's what we're talking about. So even if your parents are divorced, it doesn't matter. That's where you're from. And it's not up to your dad. It's not up to your relationship with your dad. It's not between you and him. If you drop dead anywhere in Nigeria, they'll pick you up and take you to that village. That's why I keep saying these things. If you're a woman and you're going to get married, you're going to get married there, unless you want to be like fancy and have it like elsewhere. Like you can have it in like a city, or you can have it in America or in Paris or whatever. You can marry wherever you want. But if you want a real, where they're going to do your ego wine, that kind of thing, where they're going to do the real wedding, your real marriage is going to be at that village. You understand? And that's if your child's child, unfortunately, God forbid, all that passes away, they're going to take that kid to that. That's where even after you're dead, that's what they do with you. So that's how primordial it is to the understanding of everything. It's your father's village, right? That kind of thing. So even no matter what is going on between your parents, no matter what your relationship is with your dad, even if you don't know his name, you're still from there. It's not up to him. It's not his business. You understand? You're a citizen of that place. You're a citizen of that place. And I say this because a lot of times people will go to these places that aren't their village, and then like you can enjoy the place, but you can't fully integrate on any intimate level. Like I said, even if you want to build a house in that place, it becomes this big ordeal because you're like, where did this person come from and start trying to take our land? Kind of. Meanwhile, a lot of you guys have like huge tracts of land back home, and you're here talking about my mom's from here, my dad's from there. Go find out where your dad's from. Love me some snails. Oh my God, yes, man, I'm craving them so bad. Okay, so even though divorce, you're from your father. Yes, period. Even if they didn't get married, even if your parents didn't get married, you're from your father's village. You are a continuation of your father's people. That's where you're from. Your mother's place. This is how it works. So you have your father's village, which is your home, and then you have your mother's village, which is called your umerne, right? So in your mother's village, you're like an exalted guest. You can't be assaulted. People can't fight you. People can't do anything to you. If anything bad happens to you, the punishment for the other person is more severe because you're you're a dignitary there at your mother's village. So if anything bad happens, you go there for refuge. Nobody can do anything to you. If anything's going on, you're always going to be safe in your mother's village. But you are a citizen of your father's village. You're a citizen of your father's village. All of your traditional rights and things that are that you're supposed to engage in or that are there for you are going to be in your father's village, in your father's place. When you get married, if you're a man, your wife is going to become a part of that village. You understand? The land you own, and you probably own land even if your parents are divorced, is in your father's place. Now, of course, you can go buy land elsewhere, but it'll be an issue. There's this big stereotype they have of Igbo people in Nigeria that Igbo people won't sell you their land. Like if you come to Igbo land, you can't buy land, but Igbo people are always buying land elsewhere. Let me tell you right now, as an Igbo person, from our mama, I can't go to Imbidi, which is kind of walking distance from our mama, and I can't go there and start buying land. There's a resistance. Like it's like I'm an invading foreigner. That's the mentality. We had this lawyer. We have a community meeting here, a very small meeting, and we had a lawyer from a community that's so close to where we're from that half of the people in my village are married to somebody from that village, right? And he came there, and once he said where he was from, he's like, oh, that his dad is from our place. Oh, I'm sorry, his mother's from our place, but that his father's from Amiri, which is a very neighboring village. We had to get on the phone and call the head of the Amiri meeting and say, hey, we have one of your sons here. He's a very accomplished man and a very respectable man. So we want you to know we're not trying to steal your member. We had to call and leave a message at like 9 p.m. to let them know. That's how serious this thing is taken. It's not a small thing. It's not like it's not like here in America, like, okay, I live in Houston. Okay, now I live in San Antonio, that kind of thing. It's a very serious thing. No matter where on earth I go, I'm from my own mama. It doesn't matter. You understand? If my son does the right thing, when I pass, they're going to take me to our mama and bury me. That type of thing, So that's how serious it is, right? So when somebody asks where you're from, this is for those people who are like recent arrival. You're from your father's village. And that thing is it's not a small thing. It's a major thing. So if you don't know that, then you haven't started. Igbo pyramids. Okay, guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up. I'm from Umudioka. Cool. Yes. I know Umudioka, Anambra, I believe. Which one is food? You're I don't know what he's talking about. Okay, wow. I was just thinking about this silently to myself for the past couple of days. This is how I know I must be on the right track. Days. I don't know if you're talking about whatever food blood is or the father thing. I've probably been talking about that on too long, and it's a boring thing anyway for most people. So, but yeah, you're from your father's place. So yeah, I think that's everything. Guys, I want to thank you. This stream was to celebrate 5,000 subscribers. You know, when I made the channel, I knew that there'd be some people interested, but I thought it would be this tiny little thing where I get to have fun and speak to like a very small niche audience. And like, you know, this is like a year and a few months, and here we are, you know, 5,000 subscribers is no joke. The videos are being received well. You guys are sharing it in all these different places. And most important to me, you guys are also sharing a lot with me and teaching me and introducing me to some of the things that you've learned in your own journeys and so forth. So I'm really grateful for that. And I want to really say thank you. And I sincerely mean what I'm saying from the bottom of my heart. You guys' support has been a surprise and a blessing. And so, yeah, here's to 5,000 subs, and here's to the next 5,000 to come. So I'm going to head out. If you guys want to support the channel, the best way to support it is on patreon.com/themedicineshell. All my patrons not all my patrons, sorry. Some of my patrons get access to an in-house Debia who can do readings for you, do afa, those types of things, and assist you on a level higher than what I could, that is. You also have access to my research library. It has all of the documents I use in my own research and learning. These are full books. Some of them are articles. Other ones are firsthand accounts, different things of that nature. And then, of course, we have the Igbo calendar, 13, so that you can track the 13 moons, different rites and rituals, and which market day it is, especially if you're trying to incorporate a lot of these lessons into your own daily life. Knowing which market day and what is done on each market day is very important. So all of this is available at patreon.com/themedicineshell. Also, if you like this discussion that we've had, we have an Odinani group chat in a group study. We do it every other Sunday on Patreon. That has become one of my favorite parts of the month. The last one we were discussing really blew my mind. The topic we were discussing was the US and the Soviet Union had this race to master astral projection. And so in the race to master astral projection, they started figuring out a lot of really interesting stuff, things that our ancestors already knew very well. And they ended up having to go to the Egyptian sources and Egyptian glyphs and so forth to learn why a lot of them were dying while they were trying to astral project. It came to a point where they started dying and things like that. So we had this very intense, very interesting discussion on that. I have it saved. There's a list of the videos for those who missed it. So we had this great discussion on that on the group chat. If you're interested in topics like that or discussions like this, we have the next one coming up is going to be on more and dance. So the relationship between dancing and more, or physical movement and more. If you're interested in that, all that is available at patreon.com/themedicineshell. I have the link tagged to the top. It says patreon.com/themedicineshell. Yes, 5K is major. Thank you very much for that, Ugochukuchir. Thank you very much, Ross. Hold on, wait, I have this thing. I don't know why this one is showing up. Again, if anybody is making Igbo art and wants to see art/yogi, I hope I'm saying it right. Yeah, check that out. I'm not trying to advertise. Oh, no. Yeah, that's yeah. Plug your stuff. That's what's up. I appreciate that. What you're doing is very important. So again, patreon.com/themedicineshell. My next video is going to be on the 4 world ages. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. I'm pretty sure you guys have all subbed. Share the videos with people who you think would be interested in these topics. I've noticed that if YouTube shows me who's watching, like just the analytics and stuff. And I've reached a point where the majority of the people watching are people who are already subscribed. So I want to try, which I don't think very few other channels have that dynamic. So that means the audience I have is like top tier loyal and top tier supportive. So one thing I want to do is see if I can get some new people to start taking a look at some of these things. So if you know people are interested in these topics, share a video with them that you find interesting, share them on Facebook, share it on Twitter, send it to somebody, however you send it, and so forth. I've had people say that, oh, they sat down and watched it with their parents, and like that. Those stories are always usually interesting, because what ends up happening is this person who thought their parent was like this like super detached Christian now starts like letting their kid know that like, yeah, I'm actually the head of the blank 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 society back home, and I'm the one that does yada 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 ritual and all this stuff, and starts breaking all these things down. I've had that happen 2 times now, and I always found the story super interesting, because the first person was like that they were like, because I kept telling them that, you know, to go, that because they wonder who their ancestors were, and I told them to ask their parents, like, oh, that their parents will get mad, yada yada. I was like, okay, and that's unfortunate, but don't say the word ancestors, just say grandfather, great grandfather, that kind of thing. And then next thing you know, they're watching the videos together, and next thing you know, their dad ends up being like the damn is and more of the village. So the funny things that older Nigerians keep to themselves, it's a very strange thing. But yeah, anyways, I'm heading out. Well, thank you guys all. I was sick when I started this, but I'm feeling great right now, and it's thanks to you guys. So thank you. It's a favorite channel of mine. Awesome. Appreciate that very much. All right. So as always, unogade. It means you guys will be, you guys will live. Unogade, unogamo, unogeri. Ise. Gachifo.